with the National Park Service, Chief of Partnerships, Volunteer and Youth Programs. Welcome to today's panel discussion. We're going to be talking about economic development in Ward 7 and 8 and what we can do to make certain that it is native, homegrown, and organically driven, meaning that you are involved, that you are empowered, and you are able to play a part in what's happening in DC and what's been happening in DC, and that you can stay in DC. So one, I want to give thanks to Ron Moton for organizing this entire event. Yeah, because Ron is making sure that GoGo music and the culture remains a part of the fabric of Washington, D.C. In the last, 2-3 years, GoGo has really had this grand resurgence, and it's been a lot in part because of folks like Ron Moton. There are so many others who have been part of the cause, but certainly Ron has been a great activist, a culture keeper, really, of trying to insert that GoGo remains a viable part of Washington, D.C.'s culture, and that it is not lost or forgotten. I got to see that firsthand yesterday when I was at the Kennedy Center, and GoGo was front and center, as it should be. So without further ado, let's get into the panel here. I'll have each panelist introduce themselves. We have some great folks with us, including Ron. So to my right, we have Omar Hakim.
Hey everyone, my name is Omar Hakim, DC born and raised, love it here, love this city, thank you for having me. I'm an architect and I run a design firm focused on environmental and social equity called To Be Done Studio, because there's always more work to be done.
Hi everybody, I'm Shane Wells. I am the Communications Director at our Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. Thank you, Ron, for this opportunity to be here. I remember I was 15 and I would see you out in the streets working, still doing it, so I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
What's good, y'all? My name is Jason. I'm co-founder of Cedar United, which is a nonprofit based right here in Ward 8. Also brand ambassador for Nubian Human, which is a store inside the Anacostia Art Center. And I'm also a filmmaker that has worked on a film based on the life and times of a DC resident in Ward 8. So pleasure to be here. Appreciate you, Ron.
Thank you. My name is Ron Moton, Domeu DC and Checker Enterprises, located right in historic Anacostia. Located right in historic Anacostia. And I grew up uptown in Ward 4 in Petworth. And, you know, I came over on this side 20 years ago. And one of the things I take pride and joy in fighting for east of the river to make sure what happened in Petworth, where I grew up at, doesn't happen here. You know, when I go to Petworth, I cry because nobody I know lives there anymore. So in Anacostia, where me and my partners have a business, we have been able to survive over the last 8 years, but also gain equity by help of city leaders, but most importantly also fighting and joining our community to fight for equity first. And one of the things I want to make sure is everybody understands that we have to fight to get what we want. Frederick Douglass, who was in Anacostia, the lion of the Anacostia, said, "Power concedes to nothing, never has, never will." So if our voices are not heard, and we not organized, and we not loving each other, we can't expect nobody else to love us.
Amen, amen. That is perfect, Ron. It's interesting you invoke Frederick Douglass, because we are also responsible for maintaining and preserving the Frederick Douglass home right here in Anacostia. The National Park Service is, and yep, power concedes nothing without a demand. And he also said, agitate, agitate, agitate. So that's a great segue into my very first question. How will Ward 7 and Ward 8 residents, what do they need to do what do they need to be asking the city, or asking for and from the city, to ensure that they are playing a part in DC's economic development. We see right across the river here on the Ward 6 side, you know, and of course Wards 1 through 6 has seen immense economic development, from businesses to homes, new residences, eateries, all of the, you know, accoutrements that you would want in, you know, a neighborhood. But we struggle to get even a grocery store in Ward 7 and 8. So, you know, what are the things that the residents should be doing to ensure that their communities have the resources and the amenities that it should? And then, I mean, do you want to
start?
Yeah,
sure,
do you want
sure.
to?
That's a good question. Ron, I'm from Petworth too, and born and raised up there, and recently was blessed enough to be able to buy a condo in Petworth. You know, thanks to government programs. But I can count on my hand the number of families that are there today, that were there when I was growing up. You know, I ride past and I'm like, this is crazy. You know what I mean? And so I think you just gotta make yourself heard and be present. Just like this event is happening today. I didn't expect my Sunday to end up like this on this panel, but it may sound cliche, but you gotta continue speaking truth to power. Just know that there are also a lot of programs out there in this city to help. There's the feds gave us a lot of money to help folks that are struggling with rent and utility assistance. Tap into that, and also lift each other up too. Continue making sure that your neighbors are growing and with you, and again, like, just show up. You know, we have a lot of ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings in Ward 7 and 8 recently. Show up. Let your elected officials from the mayor on down let us know what you need. And you know, my goal is to help direct folks to resources. Right. So at the end of the day, that's what I'm concerned about.
Shane, can you tell us really quickly what are some? You said there have been a lot of groundbreakings in Ward 7 and 8 lately. How many of those, out of those that have occurred here recently, are, you know, native driven or local, locally based?
What do you mean by locally based?
I mean, is the person behind it, the developer, you know, are they, you know, native or residents of DC? And I don't mean like, you know, just recently, but like, are they homegrown?
Right. I mean, I don't think the developer may not be from DC specifically, but I think a big part of what we do, I've seen the deputy mayor and the mayor drill in the fact that folks need to be hiring DC residents on these projects.
Right.
You'll see advisories, committees from the neighborhoods that are on it. For example, we broke ground on Whitman Walker at St. Elizabeth's, which is going to be, that campus is crazy. The growth up there is crazy. It's just going to be incumbent upon us as a city to make sure that it doesn't leave folks behind, and that, you know, any retail and stuff you can afford to be up in there. Right. But that was community driven, and so most of the folks, I think, that work on these projects or we put an emphasis on making sure that it's DC folks working on them.
Gotcha. Omar, do you want to talk about kind of your work with Check It Enterprises, the GoGo Museum, and how, you know, that project is going?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I don't want to kind of mince words or step around anything. I think one of the main reasons Check It has been able to do what it does is that they were able to get ownership of their building. I mean, that's not to take anything away from the amazing work that Mo and his team has done, but you know, no blood, there's no kind of gray area here. Ownership of property, businesses, homes by Ward 7 and 8 residents, black families, black business owners, is, I think, that the heart of it. Beyond that, what I think that the kind of underlying part of what we're about to do at Check It is create a space that amplifies the power and the voice and the vision that Mo and his team have, as well as all of the youth and people that he works with. So I want to be supportive of amplifying their power and amplifying culture. And I think that's the other part of it that we need to talk about. I mean, we can talk about economic development in terms of direct connection to supporting that ownership, like I just mentioned, but we also have to have a culture and support that culture that keeps people here too. Because I mean, I grew up listening to GoGo, having GoGo all around me my whole life, and it had got a little quieter for a while, and we need to keep that here so that people have a reason to stay, and also to bring the next generation up into that. So
I wanted to say one of the things that I experienced when I had Peaceaholics, we sent 160 children to college, and to see young children who did everything right come back home to their community and can't buy a house like their parents did is unacceptable. So my thing is, even when we have these housing programs, right? Okay, I give you $80,000 to buy what? So my thing is, when we talk about intentional, like what happened with Check It, when Robert White put the legislation forward, it passed with the help of Kenyon McDuffie, and DMPEG did an excellent job in helping making it happen. It was a team effort with the whole government working together. None of this tug of war, back and forth stuff with people fighting each other, right? That's what our people need right now. If I go to school and I come home from college and I get a decent job, I should be able to buy a house in DC. I'm a natives are only probably 20% of Washington, DC now. When I say native black people, we probably 20%. Those people deserve a chance to buy property in Washington, DC. So the only way with the redlining that still exists and all the other things that exist, the only way that this can happen is with intentional efforts from the government and the banks. Like I have conversations with Chase Bank. They come in and say they want to do all these things in the community. And I'm telling them, this is what real help looks like. It's not a pat on the back. It's about really empowering us to be about a part of the change that's coming. And I think we can do it. I think we really can do it if people are intentional about doing it.
Thank you, Ron. Jason, can you talk about your community, what you're doing with Cedar United, and in particular, kind of walk us back through the incident that actually spurred the development of that nonprofit?
Well, I think your initial question was, what should the community be looking for from the government? And you know, to be honest with you, nothing. I think the power lies within the community. So here, we at Cedar United recognized our power within our own community. And I guess the incident that you're speaking of, 4th of July last year in 2020, a 9-year-old young man, Davon McNeil, got murdered on our street. And there was it was national headlines, and like all these separate organizations throughout the country had come to our community. And so me and my co-founder, Lawrence Bradshaw, we kind of just assessed our community and was like, wow, like the whole world has cameras on our community, and we don't have legitimate leadership to convey and articulate what our needs, wants, and desires are for our own community. It's all of this government assistance and people coming into our communities telling us what we need, what is best for us. And so what we've done is we've organized and mobilized our own community, the people that I guess the government is scared of. So the young men from 16 to 30, we stopped relying on government assistance. We were approached by Building Blocks DC and the Mayor's Office of Violence Prevention, and they just weren't able to provide what our communities really need for us to be sovereign, liberated human beings that can fend for ourselves. And so our agenda has been to empower our own community through curriculum and classes, teaching us what we need to survive ourselves. And it's been working thus far. We have a small group of people organized thus far, but Cedar United, we're operating 5 classes that, we're doing life skills training, job readiness, we have certified flagger training, we have intro to banking and finance, and we have our general youth mentoring program that is doing well. And I guess the defining point is that it's funded by the community. And it's like, since the community hasn't been presented this method of funding themselves, they didn't know. So it's like when the youngest is on the block doing whatever they do, they're like, nah, chill out on them J's, or chill out on buying an 8th every Friday. Like, look, we got to go to the garden and we need these resources. They're like, oh, all right, we got you, Jay. So it's like they just never been presented that method of investing in their own community. So we just think we not about that life, but it's like we never been presented any alternatives than what has been put in front of us. And so these youngins that people are scared of, they want to see their communities change too. So if they're presented ideas, so they don't need to buy every Yeezy and Jordans that come out. They know, like, oh, we got the garden popping, or we got to pay for the math teacher for the homeschool. And they invest in, like, the same dudes that you think won't will. So I encourage everybody to take that commitment with these young men and women in our community and present alternatives. They go, our co-founder right there, all white, you know what I'm saying, Lawrence Bradshaw, you know, and he's a beacon in our community. But every community has like an OG, like some leadership in their community that the young men and young women respect and who want better. So, you know, that's kind of the general foundation of our approach, and it seems to be catching on.
Thank you, Jason. I think you make some really valid points there. I want to go back to the notion of ownership that Omar brought up, and even Jason, you know, really you talking about self-empowerment. How, you know, what does the community have to do to really begin to foster more ownership in our communities? You know, what is that going to take? You know, clearly Cedar United is at the forefront of that type of work, but, you know, and that's for all the panelists, I think, should, you know, answer that.
I have a thought about that. So I mean, we're talking about physical ownership, property ownership, but I think we also can talk a little bit about ownership in terms of identity. And what we're trying to do over at Check It is make sure that building, whatever it becomes in the future, the young people that are going to help us with that feel like they own the identity of that place. So, and I hope that's happening across the city, especially in neighborhoods, in wards 7 and 8 and neighborhoods around. Is that youth or anyone that wants to get engaged can help shape our city, shape the buildings that create our city that shape the sidewalks, the crosswalks, the bridges, all of it, so that we can also own the identity. Of course, I'm an architect talking, and I'm biased, but I think that when we see a city that's made by us, whether or not it's that parcel that we own or that parcel that we own, we feel like it's all ours, and we can do what we want to, you know, grow it and make it in our image. So
it's on me. What's the question? I'm sorry.
Just how can the community foster ownership?
Well, I mean, you know, I think a lot of it, man. So, you know, a lot of my answers are going to be very untraditional and unconventional. So, you know, what do we do to secure ownership? It's like I think, you know, what Cedar United is doing, we're following the model of, if anyone has ever heard, the Cuban literacy program, the Cuban literacy campaign. And with that, you know, what Fidel Castro did in the late 50s is him and Che Guevara took over the government in Cuba. And once they got in power, they noticed I guess the contradictions of the country. So they had to re-educate the people to instill pride, skills, and the ability to operate. So they shut down all the schools. They just stopped school. They stopped the service industry because they felt that their communities weren't able to thrive in the state that it was in. So we've taken the same mode. So, and to specifically answer the question in regard to what can we do to secure ownership, it's like we have to understand that it's war. It's literally war. It's not like a play on words. It's like, you know, our communities have been taken from us. And you know, I'm a Native American, so my ancestry is Anacostia Indian. So my history goes back. So we have deeds and documents and papers tying us to the original land. Like, this river is so important to this community, and nobody in or from this community knows the importance of this river to our livelihood. And you know what I'm saying? So it's like, when you, to specifically answer your question, it's about re-educating our community as to who we are, what we are, and the power and abilities that we have with being united and organized as one. Like, the government is not powerful, more powerful than we are united. You know, as long as, you know, we killing each other, shooting each other, talking bad about each other, and Ron is heavy on that. Ron wants to see an organized community. And with that, we're unbeatable. So we wouldn't even have to be having these conversations about, oh, how do we get, or how do we ask, or it's like, yo, get out the way, bruh. Like, this is ours. But we don't understand that we have the power. So to specifically answer the question, we have to re-educate our children from my children's age to know, like, this is your land. These people that are offering you funds and programs stole it from you. Understand who you are. Like, this is your land. It's like we asking and begging and doing partnerships with murderers and thieves. And so that's our approach to regaining our ownership, is the truth. That is the approach.
Ron?
And I just want to say this. The young people, if you go throughout the city, I have never seen this many young entrepreneurs in Washington, D.C. Our young people want to do what's right, but check this out. They can't get brick and mortar. So once again, it goes back to policy that allows them. Checker would have never got started if a businessman in our community didn't open the door and let us in free for about 6 months until we could start giving him something. And then when he left, we raised $70,000 without the government to fix our building up, right? I'm a firm believer that you got to show that you have value first. And we showed over 8 years that we have value, and we were a stakeholder in our community. And we became a hub for our community. And then we went and asked city council to do what they've been doing for other people for decades in this town. Giving people property for $1, giving people property for $10. They've been doing this. It just ain't been us, right? So we got to make sure that we get an opportunity to do the same thing. Like, when people get their dog parks, I'm not mad at people who want a dog park. I tell people all the time, do not get mad, because anybody who pays taxes deserve what they want. So if somebody wants a dog park, they should have a dog park. But if we want something for our children and we want businesses, we should have what we want. It's all about equity. It's not about worrying about what somebody else got. It's just making sure you get your fair share. So when you take the race out of it and you keep it on principle and you keep it on what you want and what you deserve, right? And most importantly, I'm probably one of the most conservative people you ever know. I believe in holding my people accountable. Some people call it hot, I call it citizenship, right? If we don't practice citizenship and hold each other accountable, then the police are going to come and hold you accountable. We can't have it both ways. We can't have it, and I understand there are a lot of factors in this, with the inequities that we have in education and everything that started 30 years ago when the control board came in D.C. and took the trades out the schools and they took the music out the schools and helped to start a destruction of the black middle class. That's a whole nother story. So these are the things that we have to deal with.
Powerful, brother. And keeping it real. I've held my property for 29 years over in Southeast. Amen. Hallelujah.
Congratulations.
Nowhere. Now understand the underline of what's really going on. Amen. Thank you.
Congratulations.
And I appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you. Yep.
That's what's up.
29 years in Anacostia. Congratulations to you. That's wonderful. Omar, can you talk a little bit about the development of what will happen with Checkered Enterprises building and the development of the GoGo Museum? And I think then after that we should follow up Ron's point with how do we get more folks like Ron to be able to, you know, I mean, seriously, how is it, you know, Ron is right now and Kimon exceptional, but that should not be just the exception. We should have multiple black males in our community that we can look to that have, you know, done something amazing. And I'm not saying they're the only two, but I'm saying specifically the fact that they've been able to get that control and ownership. You know, how do we foster more of that? Omar?
Well, sure. I'll just say real quick what we're doing, then we'll get. That's an amazing question. So my firm to be done is going to be supporting Check It Enterprises, and I want to use the word supporting really carefully because, or intentionally, because they're doing the work, but we are working on creating a kind of phase 2 vision for what Check It Enterprises can be. That includes We Act Radio, Kimon Space, Check It Enterprises, which that Central Bay will become the GoGo Museum. Then there's going to be a food space on the space on the right if you're looking at it from the front of the building, basement venue, and then we're also going to be working on a vision for housing, for affordable housing for artists above. So trying to bring that to life and give them some design visions and tool to take it to the next step.
Awesome. Go ahead.
If I could answer your second question,
Yep.
I think people like to throw around equity. It's a buzzword nowadays. I used to work at DCPS as the spokesperson, and equity was, that's all we would say. But like, equity is meaningless without intentional action. And so, to your point about like, how do we lift folks up? How do we make more people like Ron? I get up every week and drive from Petworth to Malcolm X to tutor this young kid. You know what I mean? It's stuff like that. Waking up at 7:30 a.m., traveling 30 minutes across the way, and you know, lifting him up, making sure that I'm there, or you know, he sees a positive black male in his life, even if it's for an hour a week. So I think more of that kind of stuff would be helpful for us as a community.
Thanks. Jason?
Is the question like, what can we do? What's the initial question?
Yeah, just going, I mean, how can we have more Jasons, more Rons, you know, that are actually able to pour into the community?
I think to Ron's point earlier, I think there are a whole bunch of us's. It's just we have limited opportunity and exposure, you know, to spread our wings per se. And so when there is a Ron or Kimon or whoever that gets some level of visibility in acquiring properties and stuff, it's so minimal that we don't see the works and efforts of all of the other people. Because I know several that I could count that deserve brick and mortar spots to introduce programming to the community, or to, you know, share their art with the community, or to share their experience, or provide a service for the community. I think, you know, the thing is, there's a blatant contradiction of access to resources, you know, that we all know. It's not secret, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, but I think there are several, especially in Washington, D.C., with all of these highly educated people, even the ones that aren't born and raised here, they're like 10 universities, you know, here. So there's so many brilliant minds, and even just the young men and women that I work with in my community are brilliant minds, but they lack the opportunity and the information to kind of expand on. But I think this brother made an excellent point, because it's always what you personally can do. It can't be like, oh, they doing this, is all they doing. Like, what are you doing? Like, what? And it don't have to be a lot. It could be just like, I wake up and go tutor this youngin', like, and that could be a grand, you know what I'm saying, contribution. My son just walked up on stage like it's nothing. Like, it's good. It's cool. You can cut it off. Thank you, brother. That's what I'm saying. So my son ain't scared. He just comes like, hey man, the phone cut off, bro. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. But you know, to your point, brother, I just think, one, that there are men, because I know Ron has personally worked with over 100, 200 young men that I'm sure he's confident that could do something. I've worked with several young men and women that I'm confident could do something. It's like, I guess the elephant in the room is this: the opportunity to do these things is blatantly racist. And you know, I mean, I don't know, I don't know how to water things down. And I could be wrong, but it's like, we in the public. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm not the one to make the rules. I'm just a messenger exposing my experience as a young black, well, I ain't young no more, but as a black man born and raised in Washington, D.C., in Anacostia, my whole life, who's been making a conscious effort year after year after year since a young man, just the particular opportunities that have been denied and the specific obstacles that I myself and many others in my demographic have faced have been those of, you know, racism, redlining, you know, just minimal opportunities to expand. So I think this brother led the charge with the proper aspect of how to approach it. It's an individual effort. Like, yo, what are you doing?
And I wanted to say this: Anacostia is a special place. We have, I believe, like 7 black people who brought their businesses. So everybody didn't get help from the government. There are people who figured it out and brought their property, right? But I would tell everybody this: I learned how to make friendships with people. The person who sold me my property, everybody talked bad about him. And he sold all his property to black people, right? Now, you got other people who own property in Anacostia won't even rent it to black people. So I'm just telling you, you guys, it's all about networking, it's all about relationships and believing in yourself and not letting people tell you what you can't do. Because I don't let nobody tell me and my youngins what they can't do. And it's another thing is, we got to start holding people accountable and not pimping our youngins. Because the young people from Checker that stuck with me, their names are on deeds. They own the buildings with me. It's not Ron Moton's buildings, it's our buildings. You feel what I'm saying? So for the young people in the streets, if they can't see that when they change, something good can happen, why would they change? When they get all the attention for doing what's wrong. They can get a lot of attention for doing what's wrong, but we got to make sure they empowered and get attention for doing what's right.
All right.
Just real quick, to the point that Ron made, the same person that Ron got the building from has funded a film about the gentrification process that's happening in Anacostia. And, you know, for the record, this is a white man. You know what I'm saying? So we can. So when I'm speaking about racism, I'm not talking like, oh, white people are the devil. Or it's like, nah. It's like some people are down with seeing positive change, regardless of what their race is. So the same dude that sold Ron, I think, and Kimon, their buildings, is the same person that funded my film. That's actually talking about the gentrification process that's happening in our community and what we're facing as communities. As he's like, yo, that voice needs to be heard. So it's not specifically like, oh, like it's racism because it's white people. It's just racism when you're biased against another group of people. Right. So it could be, you know, Asian people against, you know, whatever, you know, Puerto Rican people. I'm not saying black and white. I'm just saying racism generally has been problematic in the development, and institutionalized our minds and putting us in a predicament where it's prohibited us from thriving.
Okay. And just to close out, Jason, would you tell folks where the name of the film, and how they can view it or check it out?
Yeah. I know. Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Go ahead, sis.
Can we ask a question?
No, we got to close out.
We got
2 seconds.
We got to close out. The band got to come on.
I know. I'm a dance thing. I don't know what.
So real quick, there's a film coming out. It's going to be premiering at the Art Theater. I mean, it's not going to be premiering. It's going to be a screening at the Art Theater on October 7th. It's called Life on the Rocks. And it's a story about a family in Anacostia and how they're dealing with the changes. They have children, they're teachers, they're workers in this community and from this community, and they see drastic changes happening surrounding them, and they're coping with how to deal with it. It's our story. It's from our perspective. No one came into our community, did this film. It'll be on Netflix next year, not this year. So what's happening this year is just screenings. But again, it's called Life on the Rocks. It'll be screening at the Art Theater on October 7th.
Awesome, that's awesome. This is a great way to close out. Let's give all of our panelists, Ron, Jason, Shane, and Omar, a hand. Thank you all. The band is going to be up in a few, so...
oh, real quick, man, salute to Ron. I don't know if y'all know how important GoGo music is. And Ron has been an ambassador, a beacon of light to keep GoGo not just relevant, but prevalent. As we continue to take our city back, he has ensured that GoGo is the war music and our rallying cry to secure our land. So salute to you, brother. It's much appreciated. It's not in vain, brother. So shout out to GoGo, man.
Right, GoGo forever. Don't mute DC. Thank you, everybody.
October 7th, Life on the Rocks.